Razer's new keyboard. It achieves perfect strafing inputs. No movement overlap, no delay between direction changes. This movement accuracy is 100% impossible on a normal keyboard, and in the past, this way of input handling has been determined as cheating. Razer though are calling it SnapTap. It's a free update that's available on their Huntsman V3 analog keyboards, and after testing this thing out, it is 100% something that we need to talk about. Normal gaming keyboards look like this. You've got a 2mm actuation point. Beyond that, the key is active, and above that point, the key is reset. That's pretty much it. The main issue here is that there's a lot of delay between what you intend to happen when you press or release a switch and the point when that actually happens. But then, Wooding mostly fixed this. They came out with their adjustable actuation points, making the press delay basically as minimal as you'd want, along with a feature called Rapid Trigger, allowing the switch to instantly reset the moment it starts lifting up. This feels leaps and bounds more intuitive to play on, and since the majority of keyboard input lag is actually the physical travel of the switch, it offers literally multiple frames of lower latency pressing and releasing switches. But there's actually one more thing. On the Wooding, it is still technically possible to overlap your movement keys. If you start pressing one direction before releasing the other, you're technically actuating both keys at the same time, and in most games, this will give you no input. The chance of this happening is way lower than a regular mechanical keyboard, but it is still there, and that is where this new feature from Razer comes in, called SnapTap. It only activates your last pressed input, now making it impossible to overlap your movement keys. If you hold down one key and then press the opposite direction without releasing the other, you'll just start moving in that new direction. There is no movement overlap at all, and there's also no delay between the left and right movement. You can be moving in one direction on one frame and then
Wait, then why is this cheating? I don't get it. Counter strafing relies on you actually having both inputs at the same time, making it a neutral input, which makes your character stand still when you're taking the shot with an AK or Deagle. This is just garbage. This is just worse. This is not cheating. Like, it's worse than a normal mechanical keyboard for games like Counter-Strike.
Instantly get an input in the opposite direction, literally the next frame. No other keyboard can do this. Now in Counter-Strike, the most important movement technique to learn is called counter-strafing. It's when you release one movement key and then tap the opposite one to stop moving as soon as you possibly can. In this game, you only have full accuracy at 0 movement velocity or very close to it, so the sooner you can stop moving, the sooner you can fire an accurate shot. And this technique takes a...
What do you mean? If you press A and then you hold down D, your character stops.
lot of practice. It looks easy if you've never tried it before, but consider the precise timing that you need to release and press that new switch every single time in the heat of a game, with no movement overlap and no delay between those inputs. It is legitimately something that you could still be improving after thousands of hours of playing this game. This keyboard though can do it perfectly every single time with like no effort. All you need to do is be moving in one direction and tap the opposite direction, and you get a perfect counter strafe every single time. And I don't mean like perfect as in like kind of perfect, I mean frame by frame. This is as perfect of a counter strafe as the game engine will allow. So here's a bit of a counter strafing simulation between the Razer Huntsman Mini V3 and the Wooding 60. These two solenoids will perform a strafe and a counter strafe, so we can see which keyboard will give us the better movement. And to kind of simulate human error, I've added a tiny bit of overlap. Basically, if you were to start pressing one key without lifting the other immediately, which is way more common than you might think, especially under the pressure of a competitive game, even for a pro player. And yeah, we can see a difference. Razer's SnapTap gets us back to full weapon accuracy roughly 60 to 70 milliseconds faster. And maybe more importantly here, there are several frames where you'll be at full accuracy on the Razer, but almost full spread on the Wooding. And then in Overwatch, where you don't have counter strafing, but you do have instant changes in direction.
Okay, well, assuming that that's actually correct, which I don't think is unreasonable if he actually tested this, you also have to take into account that your mouse crosshair has to be put in the right place as well, and that will take longer in most cases than, you know, half a mil or 60 milliseconds. So I don't know if it actually matters.
For fun,
right? Like now it's just measuring a standstill crosshair going from left to right, right? But you also have to
what's your
adjust the
favorite
crosshair
Minecraft block?
while you're doing it. So it takes a little extra while anyway, so then it doesn't matter the 60
Is it the
milliseconds,
diamond
right?
block? I really like Minecraft speedruns.
It's a very similar result, not something that's easily noticeable in real time, but keep in mind this is the exact same input happening on both keyboards, but with a different result. I've also only simulated a tiny bit of overlap of just 50 milliseconds. The worse that overlap is, the more dramatic this result will be. But again, the big thing here is how easy this is to do every single time, and you get a perfect input. I can personally count the number of times that I've played CS. It's enough to know that my movement is pretty bad, but this keyboard turned me into a counter-strafing god within about 5 minutes of practice. It was so easy to do over and over again. Even under the pressure of a 1v1, this keyboard just did it for me. But then I noticed something that's maybe even more broken. If you hold down one direction and keep tapping the opposite direction, you can do absolutely perfect jiggle strafing. Again here, no input overlapping or delay, it's brutally easy to do, and if you stay within the right dead zone in Counter-Strike, you still technically have full accuracy. It makes micro-correcting with little strafe inputs absurd.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an actual big deal. It's not worth playing on that keyboard for ants for. That's what I'm trying to say.